You might have heard that Ghana was the first African country to gain independence, but that is not true. There were at least 4-5 countries that were independent before Ghana was granted independence. The question is, why did our course books that we took in school tell us and lie to us that Ghana was the first African country to get independence? In this video, we delve into the facts about which African country got independence and what is really that we call independence, and also pose the question, why is that era still taught in our schools if they haven't removed it? Welcome to the video, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Remember to stay put and watch till the end. Thank you. In 1957, Ghana, under the leadership of Kwame Nkrumah and the Convention People's Party CPP, was declared an independent country in 1957. However, it is wrong and misleading to say that Ghana was the first African country to gain independence. Let's get a breakdown of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 countries that were independent before Ghana, and that brings the question as to why is the developers of our curriculum lying to us in this era of technology. The first country that I want to talk about is South Africa. Yes, South Africa. You have been lied to, and it is not an excuse. You have the opportunity now to learn the truth. It is presented as if South Africa gained independence in 1994. But that was not independence per se. It was the change of the policies of governance, where the blacks were not segregated against the whites. Now, the whites in South Africa, who were the minority and who were in government, were not colonialists from UK, were the settlers who are residents of South Africa. They were the Dutch. They had been staying in South Africa for the longest time. Now, the British government went to South Africa and colonized South Africa, and it made an agreement with the settlers who are whites, that the settlers in South Africa were handed over power by the British government. But these white men in South Africa were not from UK. They were the white people who were staying in South Africa before the Mzungu came. And the Mzungu government, the UK government, went back to UK. And now the South African government got independence to run its own affairs. Now these whites who are in South Africa now started what we call the racial segregation, which is in Afrikaans called apartheid, which now is what the likes of the ANC and Mandela and Walter Sisulu, Oliver Tambo, Steve Biko, Miriam Makeba were fighting against the white supremacy. The only difference of South Africa and other countries is the whites in South Africa were not UK or Europeans or French, were South Africans who had been staying there from Netherlands or Belgium or from Europe, but they had been staying there and they were independent from UK. And this happened in 1910. It is when the South African Republic was formed. So, South Africa got independence first. However, those who were granted the independence started now oppressing the blacks. So, South Africa, if we mean independence by being given the mandate to rule yourselves by the UK government or the France or the colonizers from Europe, then South Africa could be the first country, or should be the first country. However, the independence turned sour after the white minority failed to include the blacks and to make a democratic government. and they started mimicking other colonial governments. When in 1994 independence happened, the whites never went to UK. They still remained in South Africa because they are South Africans. So they remained there, and their political party is still there. In fact, the political party that was ruling during apartheid, the DP, is now ruling South Africa in a coalition with NC. You remember that the Cyril Ramaphosa's party NC did not garner the majority of votes required for him to single-handedly form a government. So he had to look for a coalition partner. And the coalition partner that he went for is the party of apartheid that ruled South Africa for over 40 years, harassing the Africans. It is still South Africa. Alright? So South Africa got independence first from the UK government in 1910. And the political party of apartheid is still there. And it is in ruling South Africa in coalition with the ANC today. Today meaning 2025 July. The other country was Egypt. Egypt was given independence in 1922. Now, who was given the independence in Egypt? The UK government, remember, was ruling Egypt and Sudan as a condominium, as a joint thing. So, Egypt had a monarch, and the monarch was given internal rule by the UK government to rule in 1922. Now, the monarch ruled Egypt, and in 1952, the monarch was overthrown. You have heard, if you went to school in the 844 system, you read in social studies of a man called Gamal Abdel Nasser and General Muhammad Naguib. It is the Gamal Abdel Nasser and General Muhammad Naguib overthrew the monarch. The monarch was an Egyptian monarch in 1952. It was a young boy called King Farouk. Now, General Muhammad Naguib in 1952, together with they were called the free officers, overthrew the monarch. And then General Muhammad Naguib, of course, could not stand up with the hits and the reforms expected of him by his colleagues, including Nasser. So he himself was also overthrown in 1954 and put under house arrest. And Gamal Abdel Nasser took over Egypt as the president in 1954. So Egypt got independence in 1922, but the monarch took over. And the monarch was overthrown in 1952 by Naguib as the president of the Council of Revolution, and the Naguib himself was toppled in 1954 by Gamal Abdel Nasser, and Gamal Abdel Nasser ruled Egypt from 1954 to 1970, when he died of a cardiac arrest. So Egypt was there in 1922. Then reforms were made in 1952, then 1954, and this is long before Ghana's of 1957. Before the third country that I want to talk about is Libya. Libya got independence in 1951, and the monarch was established in the same year. So Libya in 1951, after being given independence, took over the independence as a monarch. And the monarch, King Idris I, ruled from 1951 to 1969. Now, if I mention 1969 and you are privy to the history of Libya, you will remember what happened in 1969. A young boy, a young man, a junior officer, Colonel Muammar Gaddafi, a 29-year-old, overthrew the monarch in 1969, and that's when Gaddafi took over power in 1969 and ruled up to 2011, when he was removed by our own, he was killed by our own son from Kenya, quote Barack Obama, is such an asshole. So now that is Libya for you, the third. Now I want also to talk about another country, and you will realize that this country are in the northern part of Africa. We are now at number 3. Now the number 4 that I want to talk about, Morocco. Morocco independence was formally declared by French on 2nd March 1956. Remember, just a brief history of Morocco. The country's sultan had been exiled by the French because he was seen as a leader for nationalism and the one caused incitement against the French or the Spanish. So he was exiled and he returned due to activism and more widespread activism. He was allowed to return back from exile in 1955, and then after agreements and signing of accords, France finally called it a day as far as governing first Morocco is concerned. And on 2nd March 1956, Morocco gained independence. Now let's go to before we go to the next country, let me flash you back to Sudan. I had told you that Sudan had been co-governed or co-colonized alongside Egypt, and Egypt was like manning Sudan on behalf of the British. And remember, during the reforms, when the monarch of Egypt was overthrown in 1952, then the Naguib was overthrown in 1954, and Nasser took over. Then it became easy to destabilize the colonial hold in Sudan, and the British finally get loose of Sudan, and Sudan became an independent country on 1st January 1956. So that is now the 4th and then the 5th country now. So now let's move from Morocco. On the same year, 1956, we had the 1st January, Sudan, 2nd March, Morocco, and now the 6th country, 20th March, the same year, 1956, is Tunisia. All right. Okay. So how many countries have we covered? South Africa, Egypt, then Libya, 1951. Then in 1956, then we have Sudan. Then in 1956, we also have Tunisia. Then in 1956, again, we also have Tunisia. So now from 2006 countries. Now I should also mention, now before we close this video, I should also mention a lie that also was told in some quarters, that Sierra Leone was not colonized. Sierra Leone was colonized by the British. Yes, some people say that it was a home of freed slaves, but no. British took the slaves, which they had captured there in the 1780s. 1780s. That is a year. And then British began this game of colonizing and slavery a long time ago. And don't forget that British is a Christian country. By law, it's by government. The church sits in the parliament, the Church of England. So that's what they were doing in those years. They were colonizing people. I mean, they were enslaving people. So when the slaves landed in Sierra Leone now, British followed them there. When they followed them, they declared Sierra Leone their colony, and they got independence in April 1961. So Sierra Leone was colonized. Also worth to mention is in 1922, I would have listed this as the third country alongside Egypt, but because Liberia was not really a colony per se, but it was just another imposed state of quote-unquote freed slaves by the U.S. That's why U.S. created states. It made Liberia in 1922, and then in 25 years later, it made Israel from Palestine. Lucky that Africans went to Liberia or black Americans. They did not cause chaos like the Jews who have been taken to Palestine. And by the way, free Palestine and fuck Netanyahu, Netapaka. So the other thing that I should mention is also about Ethiopia. Ethiopia was not colonized per se, and it was after the Romans were defeated by the Africans in 1896 at the Battle of Adwa. An emperor called Menelik, who was succeeded by Selassie, defeated the Romans, and they were so embarrassed, and they decided to respect Ethiopia. However, there were attempts by the UK government and those Italians to come back to Ethiopia during the reign of Selassie in the 1940s. But after some mobilization and noise from the Pan-Africanists and maybe the League of Nations, the British and the Italians stopped, and Selassie was able to step back into full control of the throne until he was overthrown in 1974. So that is it, and you should know, if you have been lied that Ghana was the first African country to gain independence, now you know that it is a lie, because the facts are there. When you start questioning, you will realize there are so many things that we have been clinging on to that do not add up and don't make sense at all. But because everyone follows them, they look to be correct. So I start questioning the things you do and start reviewing what you have been believing, so that you can be able to explain it without getting stuck. See you in the next video. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe, share the video, like, comment. If you have something that you want us maybe to be covered in this video, kuweka pale kwa comment, uniambie kuna kitu nasikianga naonanga, how about it? We will do the research and then we will nitakuwekea video hapa uonange, na then you share, and then you can get the facts right. Let's get the facts right. Let's debunk the lies. See you in the next video. Stay safe.